Welcome to Shaping eCommerce with Iron Plane. This is where we talk about e-commerce development, solutions, digital marketing, and all things e-commerce. Be sure to check out the description below each video to find additional resource links and show notes. We upload new videos each day. Please like and subscribe to our channel.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of Shaping e-commerce with Iron Plane. Today, the topic of the conversation is going to be accessibility. And with us today is Ania Karoń, who will introduce herself, and then we'll start our conversation.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Ania. I'm a senior front-end developer and accessibility specialist at Snowdog. And I'm focused on front-end work and also on accessibility for a few years. And I've been working on implement this culture in our company.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today. I think that accessibility is very top of mind for people in the e-commerce space, especially these days. Everyone has heard about it. Everyone has heard about ADA compliance. Maybe they've heard about WCAG. And it's a little bit confusing. So hopefully today we'll provide a little bit more clarity, and also in the show notes we'll provide some links to further research for people who are interested in really digging into it and understanding this field. So let's start out just with the very simple question is, what is accessibility, web accessibility specifically, and why does it matter?
Okay, so let me go to the definition on the beginning. So web accessibility means that tools, technologies, and websites should be available for people with disabilities that they can interact with and contribute also to the web. But I prefer some wider definition. It's web accessibility is inclusive practice which ensure that there's no barrier to interact and understand the website or a web app. So all users, no matter what their condition are, can benefit from the web. Why it's matter? It's because web accessibility is provide is available for all. So for all users, no matter what, and we shouldn't discriminate people with disabilities or with some special needs, we can say. And it's important from our ethical part, ethical side. We shouldn't discriminate. We should be open. All services move to the web right now. It shows also during COVID pandemic that we should stay at home and we use web to make shopping, to contact with others, etc. So all these web services should be available for all users, especially for them who has some special needs, who has some limitation.
So accessibility to me is such a great idea. It feels like how, and I know that we'll get into this a little bit, but it seems like with someone who has poor vision or completely visually impaired, or someone who can't hear the prompts from their computer, or someone who may not be able to manipulate a keyboard or the mouse effectively. These seem to me to be pretty complicated. It's remarkable to me that there are technologies that can help with all of these things. Maybe not perfectly, but is that true? Is there the technology in place today that can make these more easily accessible?
Yes, of course, and we all use assistive technologies. For example, mouse or keyboard. And we have also in browser, we have accessibility API, which which provide the access for this assistive technology, like for example, also screen reader. So for people with low vision or some vision impairments, we have also like the caption in movies for people who have hearing impairments, and for those who have some motor disabilities. We use also this API for keyboard, so they use the different switchers, for example, or even for those who are totally paralyzed, they use eye tracker to operate the web.
Wow.
So yeah, the technologies let us really like amazing things right now on the web, and thanks for that we can use it.
So I like the approach where the motivation here is really ethical and really driving towards greater accessibility for everyone. That's the foundation. Just one note, a lot of companies also are very concerned about accessibility for the legal reasons. And again, I know that we'll touch on this a little bit more, but that is one of the reasons businesses are considering what their accessibility requirements are and how they can implement that. So I'm just putting that out there. In our opinion, and I know you share this opinion, Ania, it shouldn't be the driving force behind why you choose to make your website accessible, which should be much more of a choice to make it accessible for all. But there is that legal responsibility, at least in the United States, and I know in many countries in Europe as well, or in Europe, where it is actually a legal requirement for websites to be accessible. So when we talk about accessibility, there are some acronyms that people will come across, and I think it's worth just touching on those and talking a little bit about the role that each of those has.
Sure, no problem. So WCAG is a Web Content Accessibility Guideline. It's a main guideline that provides success criterion for web and apps, also the mobile apps, to make them available for all users, also those with disabilities. And it's not any regulation, any law regulation. It's guideline provided by the Web Consortium, which we should like follow. And all the regulation point, like most of those regulation point to the WCAG.
I see. Okay. Not a regulation in and of itself, but it is a guideline that has been recognized and is referred to from regulation documents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like in European Union, there is the directive, Web Accessibility Directive also, which change all the time, that also point to the WCAG guideline.
Okay. And what is the relationship between ADA and WCAG? Is it just, as we discussed, where the ADA references WCAG?
Yeah, because we have also the different version, like that, like until 2008, it was like WCAG 2.0. Now is from 2018, it's 2.1. And now the consortium is working on 2.2 and WCAG version 3. But version 3 is a draft, so yeah, the end version 2.2 should be maybe available in December this year or next year.
Okay.
So it's evolving. Yeah, it's evolving like because technology is also evolving all the time.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Great. And so if we can talk a little bit about who the ADA regulations apply to, and also what kind of the regulations say and why websites are included in that.
Okay, so we need to a little bit move to the past because ADA, it's like Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's it refers to people with disabilities, and it it's like don't discriminate them, like to use the public also services. And when the web started to be more and more popular, on the beginning it wasn't sure that the website should be also like in this like act. But about 2000, with the statement of DOJ, so the Department of Justice, like they said openly that the public sector of the web and also some public sector like they sell for the public should be also included in this act. So they point there on the WCAG, like the guidelines, like the main guideline, and they should comply.
Okay. And when we think about businesses, we can describe them as B2C businesses. We can also, that's business to consumer. We can also describe them as B2B or business to business. Is there any distinction really between those two types of websites?
I don't think so. Like for a lot of users or clients, they could be, because in this act, like in the law, we have like about discrimination to sell to the public or to show some services to the public. So it's open for all. And B2B, it's more about like business to business. And maybe in some cases, it could be an argument in the court, but there are also people with disability who work in different companies and they use these services on the web. So in my opinion, it shouldn't be a case at all. Like all websites should be accessible.
Yeah, and I think another, again, ethically, you should do it. But the other thing is that I think if you want to put, your business at some risk because you feel that you're not included in these ADA regulations, like the courts have not shown to be favorable towards businesses that take that risk. They have shown consistently that, and it usually ends up in settlement, but the courts usually end up siding with the people who are differently abled who are trying to access that website. So it's not a good bet if you think you can take that risk. So just a word of warning there. And again, the goal here should be to make your business online more accessible to everyone. Okay, so that's
and it's also, like according to this ADA compliance, we see also the growth of lawsuits in this area. So in the US, there are, I think, 4 states that are on the top of it. It's New York, Florida, California, which yes, it's the top of it. That's the most it doubled from 2018 until 2021.
Yeah.
So show that it's really a case.
Yeah. And I hate to be like a fear monger, but it is growing, and it's really, it's good and bad. On the one hand, yes, everyone should be aware of this and everyone should be trying to make it better. But there's also people out there who are really launching these lawsuits just to be very aggressive and make some money, so I don't want to, but it is out there, it's real, and it's something to take very seriously, I think, especially if you're doing substantial portion of your business online. The settlement numbers are in the millions, so it's not something to play around with. You mentioned California, and I think it's just worth touching briefly on the fact that there are some states who have their own regulations, which might be a little bit different than what the ADA says. So the ADA is at the federal level, but there are some states, and I think California is one of them, that has some specific regulations. Is that true?
Yeah, it has also a special guideline, but I'm not the special in this area. It points also to the WCAG in the mostly, but they have some special criterion too.
Okay.
So It's like it's complicated with the law, but yeah. But
just worth being aware that there may be some state-specific regulations that also apply to your business. Okay, great. So we've touched on what it is, why it matters, and a little bit about the acronyms and the laws. So when we're talking about accessibility, we've touched on a little bit, but if I own a website, I'm an e-commerce merchant, what are the kind of core areas that I should be looking at to address in terms of accessibility on my website?
So according to WCAG, the website should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So we have some area, like main area, that we should focus on. First of all, it's like visual, like we should perceive this website. So the poor color contrast is a really often, like frequently issue on the websites. Next, the navigation, which should also support keyboard navigation. Like I said earlier, it's also used for different assistive technologies. So not only with keyboard, but also for some switcher, etc. So it's also very important. And here a lot of websites fail, unfortunately. It's also very important area. It's forms. Because forms, it's an area when we contact with the we have it should be also
like pick out all the stoplights or the crosswalks. Like that's a challenge right there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Google now provide reCAPTCHA for like people with vision impairment, so you can hear the code, for example, and implement it right there. But we should be aware of it, and we should check if it's really operable. And this form, it's really important. It's also important about the labels and error messages. So if the error message appears, it should be really like not only that we see the red over red border, but we see the message itself, because it should be heard for people who doesn't see it, for people who don't see it.
Okay.
This way. And what else? I think also the focus state. So it's something when we use the keyboard and we focus on different elements, for example, links or buttons, we see where we are on the website. So we don't use a mouse but we use some other assistive technology, and we see on which place we are. So I think it's and one more thing, alternative text for graphic and images.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really some basic element that it's in the web from the beginning, but it's really a big issue with it, and it's very important.
It's a different approach though, because I think alt tags, and it was always like, oh, let's get the keywords into the alt tags and make it much more kind of SEO friendly. But that's a very different approach than the alt tags that they should be there for accessibility, which is truly a descriptor of what is in the image. So a man at the desk with a laptop in front of him and a cup of coffee, with interior lighting, that's the descriptive alt tag that helps someone understand what is on the website, rather than, keywords.
Yeah, and we, for example, people who is screen readers hear like multiple times the product name on the product website, because in each image we have the product name to make SEO better.
That's right. Yeah. I already know what the product is, but what's the image? Describe it. Okay, interesting. So those are some challenging elements. I think some of them are much simpler. I think the contrast, the font size, those are much simpler. There are some more complex ones, making sure that the forms are accessible with the proper CAPTCHA. And the alt tags can be time consuming, but once you set up the processes, I can see how it's very achievable. And again, we'll provide some links in the show notes that provide you with a little bit more detail about the kind of key elements to consider. A lot of companies are going to websites that have these accessibility review tools, and you put in your URL and it gives you a score and it gives you a list of the things that you have passed or failed. So that's one thing. I'm curious, how effective are those? Number one. Number two, there's also these little widgets or overlays that you can use on your website. And I'll just say my opinion is it seems like it's a false sense of confidence that those widgets and overlays give you in your site being truly accessible. It may look good. It may make people look at your brand and say, oh, they care about accessibility, which has its own value. But if your interest is in being truly accessible, do these types of tools help, or is it just the tip of the iceberg?
So it's a little bit two different things, because this automatic test that you mentioned on the beginning, it's like it covers, like it uses some APIs, so automatic tools to testing, and show what issue with the code we have and what the main issue with the code we have. And it's good because it's a part of testing, but automatic tests cover like from 30 to maximum 50% of issue on the website. So if your website has like none of the issue with automatic test, it doesn't mean that is accessible.
Got it.
Sometimes could also have some issue with automatic tests, but could be totally operable for people with disabilities and for different needs. So it's not always the case. It's really good to use them to check the website, because also like show us our code if it's accessible, if it's semantic, or if it could be really read by the browser properly. But it not assure us that our website is accessible.
Okay, so a good starting point, but as long as you're aware of its limitations.
Yeah, of course. And we should also think that we should run manual test. Manual test means keyboard testing. So we should like review and try to operate only with keyboard with our site. Like, for example, on e-commerce site, adding to cart, choose the options, etc., change something, like go to through the checkout process with no mouse use. And the other should be like next step is to test it with screen reader with some assistive technology. And like the best is also tested website should be tested, but by user with disabilities. It's very important because, for example, I can use screen reader to check the website, but I don't use it daily, and I don't know all the tricks like I can use to get some elements on the website. So it's not the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's about the testing in general. So we focus on this really 4 steps of testing. And about overlays, as you said, it's good that company cares, but it doesn't resolve problem on the website. And also, it's like something, it's a little bit redundant. It covers feature that we have on our computer and in our browser, like by default. So we should, and it's also create additional problem for users with disabilities who really use assistive technologies. Because for some QA tester, like normal tester, like you see it, okay, so the contrast work, like the switcher contrast work, maybe some navigation could work. But if you go deeper, if you use really this API, it shows that there are additional problems. And we can also link the page with the overlays pro and cons when there are some statements like from the users with disabilities who share their opinion about it. And I think it's not it's not so beneficial. Maybe it's a good if your site is really really awful in accessibility, like it has a lot of issues. So maybe for temporary solution it will be good.
Like a stopgap, just if you need something immediately, maybe an overlay. But it's kind of we say putting lipstick on a pig. Like if the core of your site is not accessible, putting an overlay on it doesn't really solve your problem. It might temporarily make it seem like it's a little bit more accessible, and it might in fact help in some ways, but you have to focus on the core in order to get that to be accessible, I think.
Yeah. And it's one more issue, very important, that part of this overlay can be against the privacy policy, because it can track the user and show that the user used some assistive technology, and show also some sensitive information, and like share it in the cookie. So in the cookie information between different websites. So we can say it's a leak of sensitive information, and it's not good, because like maybe we don't have like the control, like the user doesn't have control on this. So it's a problem, and it's a huge problem, because normally like building a website, we don't have information if the user uses assistive technology or not. Like I'm building the website, I don't have this information. We don't gather them also in some analysis, because it's also point to discrimination and to the privacy of the users.
Yeah.
So it's very important thing, and we should really be careful, even if we use overlay, like for redemption, like quick redemption, temporary, we should check it really carefully, because it could end in a really huge problem.
Okay, good. That's very helpful. For e-commerce merchants, what would you recommend as kind of their first steps in trying to, go forward with making their website more accessible?
So e-commerce, like I focus on e-commerce in the daily work, and what is the most important is to be aware of the problems, because with users who use like accessibility feature on our websites are all users like with disabilities, but also with temporary disabilities. There are elder users, which number is growing all the time, because now it's like 75% of American older than 65 years old use the web. They declare that. So it's a huge number compared to 14% 10 years ago. And like we can expand our target group, our audience, and there have only like they have a really great spending power. We share a statistic after all, so you can like get familiar with it, that you really like make yourself accessible and gain the audience and new customers. And I would start from auditing your website and check what like work should be done. So audit with automatic tests, with manual tests, like estimate improvements, and write also the accessibility statement on the website, because it's normal. Yeah, it's very important. And it's normal that we need time to implement fixes. And, during these fixes, we also can get sued. But we can put then the contact there. Like if you need some help to navigate this website, please contact us. We can show also the roadmap that we're working on it, that we know the issue exists. So we can really place it in some roadmap in the timeline, not do it right now, all of this, because sometimes it's really time consuming and it's really expensive. Some website can be really cheap to implement accessibility feature, and some other not. It depends of the state of the website. So it's my recommendation. And when you fix a little bit, only small issue, it could have great impact on accessibility.
Yeah, and for merchants who are looking to migrate to a new e-commerce platform, or they are just starting out and they're building their e-commerce platform, it's interesting. I like to think of it, a lot of people say, well, design and build your website mobile first. That's been a big thing over the past few years, because, anywhere from 50 to 80% of users will be interacting with your website using a mobile device of some kind. So similarly, when we say mobile first, we will start saying accessible first. So that when you do your design, when you choose your platform, there are technologies that are more capable of being accessible than other platforms. There are specific designs that are more likely to be accessible than other designs. So if you're designing accessible first, I think you have a much better chance of starting off on the right foot.
For sure. And it's really, when you implement in your process this accessibility work, it's not time consuming and it won't be a really big difference during your work on the website and of the platform and new solution. So it's worth start from the beginning.
Yeah, good. Well, Ania, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to introduce this important topic to us. I hope that people have learned something here about accessibility and the importance in the e-commerce space. And I invite them to reach out to Ironplane, and maybe you as well, if anyone has any questions. But we'll include some links. Okay. We'll include some links in the show notes as well if people do have questions that we can answer for them. We're very interested in helping businesses make their e-commerce websites more accessible. So thank you very much, Ania. I appreciate your time today.
It was a pleasure. So you can reach me also on Twitter. I leave also my tag, so no problem. And it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Okay, great.
For more insights on how to improve your e-commerce website and for a free consultation, visit ironplane.com. Follow us on social media and like and subscribe below.